Somebody find me a brick wall. Matter of fact, find me 10 brick walls because I am fired up after Matt Campbell's introductory press conference.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I don't think Penn State and Pat Kraft could have found a better fit to be the next head coach. You are locked on to Penn State football. And as always, thank you so much for joining me on another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Seyko, and I'm your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling, as we react to this introductory press conference. Find me a brick wall, find me a dozen plus. Matt Campbell said all the right things. It seemed genuine. I'm also going to talk about expectations for year one, because this team can be really successful right out of the gate. We'll get to that later on. I want to talk about the introductory press conference itself, because Matt Campbell proved that he is the right guy. Very well might be the perfect guy. I mean, Pat Kraft said he was perfect. Why it took so long to get to Campbell, why it took a 54-day process, so be it. I will let it slide, because you actually landed him. You actually landed somebody that is the right fit to lead Penn State to national titles, to always be in the national conversation. Titles aren't going to happen every year. We understand that in college football. But Campbell, I think, is the best person to lead them down that path of success. So let's begin to talk about all of the takeaways here that I had. Immediately giving credit to where credit is due to the past head coaches, the players, the lettermen, really leaning into what Penn State is and what Penn State stands for. Joe Paterno, Bill O'Brien, James Franklin, all respective, achieved different things respectively, but definitely gave credit and appreciation for all of them. Look, there are no ill feelings here about James Franklin. He won a lot of games for Penn State football. Okay. So I think that was right. And I mean, it was the correct thing to do. If you're Matt Campbell, you don't want to step on anybody immediately. So it just shows that he's humble, he's respectful, okay, that he carries himself with a standard. And he talked about that, the loyalty, the values that he's carrying over, and why it was so difficult for him to leave Iowa State. And that's going to go into my next point here, is that this guy is loyal. If you take care of Matt Campbell and his family, Matt Campbell is going to take care of you in return. I never was too fond. One of the biggest obstacles that could have presented itself with this coaching search is Penn State going to become a revolving door with head coaches for the future. And Matt Campbell, he might be a lifer. He might be someone that says, you know what? This is my destination job. He's turned down the NFL before. There are rumors that he and USC were in contract negotiations, or that there was significant interest from USC to hire him a few years back before they ultimately settled on Lincoln Riley. Matt Campbell doesn't just take any job. It's also in the proof, and he backed it up with what he was saying. But the real evidence is the proof. He stayed at Toledo for a long time. He stayed at Iowa State. He said, he's on the record saying multiple times now, including in this press conference today, I'm not going to take a job just to take a job, and I'm also not going to job hop. Well, he's certainly going to be taken care of between his salary, which is going to be over $8 million per year. There's tons and tons of incentives. Penn State is rolling out the war chest to give him everything that he needs for NIL, the transfer portal, which is going to play a big part in what we talk about in the upcoming segment here. But loyalty to Penn State, loyalty to the program, that Penn State fans, everybody who supports this program, doesn't have to worry, be looking over their shoulder saying, is Matt Campbell going to leave? Is he going to go? Is he going to disappear in 1 to 2 years? And this isn't to try to dunk on Bill O'Brien, but that concern was immediately there with the allure of the NFL. I don't get that sense with Matt Campbell. I think Matt Campbell is here for the long run. He spent a decade at Iowa State. You should at least expect something similar. He's only 46 too. So He's still fairly young as a head coach, but Matt Campbell believes that Penn State's giving him another break to achieve coaching success long term. I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be here for the long haul, as long as everything, of course, goes well, which it should, because you want to talk about alignment and everything like that. There is clear alignment here between the powers that be at Penn State. I'm talking about Neeli Bendapudi, who's the president, Pat Kraft, the athletic director, Matt Campbell. And then you're kind of getting the sense of that from the letterman. I mean, he named Todd Blackledge. He named Kyle Brady as former players that he looked up to. Rightfully so. I mean, the family connections, the local connections that he has. Matt Campbell grew up near Penn State, right? He grew up in Ohio, Northeast Ohio. So he knew about Todd Blackledge. He knew about Penn State. He said he's like, as somebody that was playing football back in the day, you would watch a player like Kyle Brady and say, I want to be like him. I want to be that next great tight end wherever I go and play football. So Campbell, I think, said all the right things. He displayed a ton of emotion, ton of gratitude. The guy seems, I like authenticity. I like people that are genuine. And those were the two main things about Matt Campbell today that we really learned. Also, just getting a better understanding of what Penn State's going to be moving forward. This is not a finesse program. This isn't, and it never has been, okay? It's not supposed to be. This is going to be a tough, physical, hard-nosed type of program that, and Matt Campbell embodies that from where he's grown up to how he's developed as a coach. It's nice to have connections with the Philadelphia Eagles, for example, because he and Nick Sirianni coached together. Once were assistant coaches on the same staff once upon a time. So Campbell, you couldn't have found a better fit, because you can just tell with all of the appreciation that he showed, the family connections, he just appreciates being here. And that was one of the things that I said about Terry Smith. Speaking of which, Terry Smith already being on staff, and Campbell saying that, oh, I want to try to get Terry Smith on staff. And he did. How can we retain him? And they did. But it's that he sees this place, he sees Penn State as more than just a job. He sees it as a lifestyle. He also talked about how he is the great grandson of a coal miner. So the guy fits into Central Pennsylvania. I know that he didn't actually grow up in Central Pennsylvania, but he has the personality that makes him fit perfectly at Penn State. Okay. He's already making some strategic coaching moves, again, bringing over key assistants from Iowa State, who we have discussed already. So we're going to discuss that a little more in this upcoming segment here. Retaining Terry Smith. And what else is he going to do? Okay. Because I think Penn State can be set up for instant success in year one with Matt Campbell. What does that look like, though? We're going to talk about it next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And this episode is brought to you by Omaha Steaks. The holidays come with two big goals: feeding people well and finding gifts they'll actually love. And when you want both handled in one move, Omaha Steaks is the way to go. From hosting to gifting, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your door. Because during their Sizzle All the Way sale, you can stock up and save in a huge way. 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners get an extra $35 off with code COLLEGE at checkout. I've received Omaha Steaks as a gift before, and I always enjoy receiving that every holiday season. It's one of the best gifts that I ever get. I also love, you will love this, how easy it is to send as a gift. It shows up frozen. It's packed beautifully. It's ready to cook. You have steaks that are perfectly aged, insanely tender, and it's restaurant level at home. So many options. You got fillets, burgers, comfort meals, sides, desserts. You can build a box for anyone, literally anybody. Holiday magic made easy. And if you order by 6 p.m. Eastern time, it will ship the same day. So save big on gourmet gifts, More holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. omahasteaks.com with promo code COLLEGE. Still to come on this episode, we're going to talk about the staff moves that have already happened, projecting which one should be next, because there are some must-get names out there that need to join this staff if you want to set up Matt Campbell for success, which is on the table here. Penn State should not be considered a sleeper team. I guess maybe, again, to each their own, might be considered a sleeper team, because I do feel like Penn State will be overlooked to an extent because it's a new coach. The roster is going to look completely different, but the war chest is open. Okay. You already began to lay the foundation here with Matt Campbell as the head coach, retaining Terry Smith. We'll see what it's going to look like with, could it be Jim Knowles as the defensive coordinator still? I think that's a plus. One way or another, you're hedging your bets. You either have Jim Knowles, who is a smart defensive mind in college football. You have now John Haycock, or you could have both. You got to have both of those guys on the same defensive staff as objectively two of the best defensive minds in college football. I just don't think it worked out in year one for Knowles. I don't think he's a bad DC. I don't think he's dumb when it comes to orchestrating defenses. I do think it was a product of the system from this past season. With that being said, Matt Campbell and Penn State are set up for instant success in year one. 10-2 is definitely in the realm of possibility. A college football playoff berth is definitely in the realm of possibility. You should not cash out on this team, overlook this team going into next season. If you're able to keep some of the best elements that this Penn State team had, merge it with what can come over from Iowa State, and combine those two things together, in year one, Matt Campbell can lead this team absolutely to the playoff. The Big Ten is going to be really top heavy once again. And I think we've kind of noticed that with the merging of the conferences or the conference realignment. USC is going to be really good next season. I have reason to believe that Ohio State should be just as good. You retain Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Smith, right? I have reason to believe that Oregon should be better next season. They got some coordinator changes. Okay. You know who's going to be at the top. Michigan should be better. Year two with Bryce Underwood, right? But Penn State, part of the reason I think they can be successful in year one. And what does success look like? I think success looks like a team that is in the mix, a team that is a serious threat to disrupt the order of the Big Ten for next season. That USC, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana shouldn't all just assume that they're going to be at the top. That Penn State can be right there waiting and then making its move. Part of the reason I believe that confidently is because schedule's kind of easy. The schedule is fairly easy. You have a non-conference schedule that, okay, we know if you want to dunk on Penn State for having a weak non-con schedule, I don't blame you. I don't, but it is strategic. When you have conference realignment, it hurt Texas. So I think the teams like Indiana are vindicated for having a non-conference preseason schedule. Penn State's schedule is not daunting. You play Washington. Washington should be better next year. Damon Williams is an up-and-coming quarterback, right? They'll have some turnover. Everybody's going to have turnover. You're also going to lose players in the transfer portal. But the three games that Penn State needs to focus on the most, at Washington, at Michigan, USC at home. You have reason to believe that they could go 9-3. 9-3 should be the expectation. If you still have doubts about the roster construction, the coaching staff coming together, year one being a transition period that Penn State still might hit some bumps in the road, okay, fine, I'll give you that. I still think that this is a team that can go at least 9-3. I think the minimum, the floor should be 8-4. Anything below that is disappointing. 7-5, 6-6, anything below 500. Well, this isn't what we expected. But if you go 8-4, right, there might be a surprise team. We still don't know. As I sit here, we don't know what the roster is going to look like. Who's the QB going to be? The backfield, the offensive line. There are good players on this Penn State team, But if they leave in the transfer portal, you can bring over select players from Iowa State that should play a ton. Is Rocco Beck next year's quarterback? You get some weapons around him. You get some receivers around him. Becht could have an even better season, his best season yet at Penn State. And then I go back to the war chest. Penn State is prepared to spend about, give or take, $30 million in NIL. It's not Texas Tech money. Pat Kraft confirmed that it's him in that leaked audio recording. But even he acknowledged that. Texas Tech is paying $40+ million. There are some other programs. I think it was Kurt Signetti who pointed out some of the big six that are spending over $40 million in NIL. But money is not the end all be all, but it at least puts you in position to succeed. So you combine, this is what the idea is for Matt Campbell, is to combine his ability to be a coach, an X's and O's guy, and a program leader, and then give him the resources to go build out a competitive team, because they did a lot of heavy lifting to make Iowa State competitive. You give him a level playing field, Penn State will be right there, year in and year out, every single time. You're already seeing pluses in recruiting. I think when Matt Campbell starts to talk to some of the players that have the ability to return and then starts making moves that are complementary in the transfer portal, you will see the vision behind it. I am optimistic that Penn State finishes no lower than 8-4, because I still think they will have a good team regardless. Transition year? Potentially. But don't expect this team to be at the bottom of the Big Ten or have another season like this year where they were just fighting to get to 6-6. That's not going to happen. I can declare that much. Now, Penn State's coaching staff is already starting to take shape. Matt Campbell is the head coach. Terry Smith is that associate head coach. She's being well compensated. John Haycock's coming over. Offensive line coach from Iowa State. So what other moves can Matt Campbell make to really set up the staff for success? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why Game Time is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through the matchups and compare seat views, pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. The seat view feature, now that's a game changer. You literally see what your point of view is going to look like from that exact seat before you go to buy. And prices include fees up front, which you're going to love. No last-second surprises at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets in every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. Final segment of this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And again, this is just the initial reaction here. Moves are going to happen. They're going to happen quickly. Matt Campbell is already beginning to fill out his coaching staff, and we still have a lot of moving parts. We don't know who the coordinators are going to be. And it's going to sound crazy, but Andy Kotelnicki and Jim Knowles are going to be considered for offensive and defensive coordinator, respectively. They also might not be retained. They might be fired, but they're under contract and they're not bad coordinators. Jim Knowles was the architect of 2 top 5 defenses at Ohio State. Andy Kotelnicki had a top 15 offense just last season. I'm supposed to say that they just completely forgot how to coach offense and defense? If I'm Matt Campbell, I consider both of them. But this staff is already taking shape. You already have the de facto general manager in Derek Hoodger, who basically did everything. Matt Campbell talked about him and personally, coming into this. Okay, how much should I really know or care about when it comes to an assistant personnel director? Oh, but this guy was the backbone of Iowa State athletics when it came to the portal, when it came to player management. He was the general manager at Iowa State, even though they didn't have a general manager. Talked about him drafting up the contracts and making everything work with name, image, and likeness. They created their own collective. Matt Campbell's going to have so much taken care of for him, and same thing. So I like that they went to battle with all of these things. I like that they did the heavy lifting, that they understood the processes of all of these things, because it's only going to make their job easier for both Matt Campbell and Derek Hoodger, who's coming over as that, again, that player personnel director of sorts. Maybe he's named the general manager at the end of the day. Penn State's exploring that role, but he's been brought over for a reason. He's going to play an integral part of filling out this roster, developing the team, right? Laying the groundwork for the team. So I want to mention him because he's important. Okay. They're going to decide who the coordinators are going to be. It was Ryan Clanton who is coming over. Now his role hasn't been defined, but it's hard to imagine that he's not going to be the offensive line coach. He was the offensive line coach at Iowa State. That was a run first team. I also like, and I pointed this out before when I talked about him, he is a run game coordinator. Penn State did not have a defined run game coordinator a season ago, which, if you noticed, over the course of the season, the run game just wasn't as effective as it was in the past. Jaywan Sider was valuable in that regard. He wasn't just your running backs coach, but if you get somebody that knows how to coach a position group and then can help you develop your game plan to make Andy Kotelnicki's job easier, Ryan Clanton is going to be extremely valuable. And Phil Troutwine, I imagine he's going somewhere. Florida, his alma mater. South Carolina, he's been linked to South Carolina, obviously Virginia Tech because James Franklin's there. The NFL. He interviewed for an NFL job last year. He interviewed for Ohio State last year. Phil Troutwine, Penn State fans should be eager at Clanton to replace Troutwine. This might be an upgrade at the end of the day because he offers more things than just developing a position group. Now, let me tell you about one coach in particular. Okay, so we know John Haycock's going to come over. He was contemplating retirement, so that's why the steam around Jim Knowles potentially staying on staff does make sense, and why Knowles hasn't been kicked to the curb. Same thing with Andy Kotelnicki. There is one coach, and Dan Connor, as far as retaining guys that are already on Penn State staff, you want to try to retain Dan Connor. You want to try to retain someone like Ty Howell, okay? Those Dion Barnes, right? It's all kind of self-explanatory at this point because they've shown tangible results developing their respective position groups. They're also Penn State alum. They have Northeast, Mid-Atlantic connections that you want to be able to couple with all of the Midwest connections that Matt Campbell has. The one position coach that I think is a must get that I will finish up this segment with, because I haven't mentioned him to this point, and I should have, Noah Pauly. Noah Pauly is maybe one of the more underrated position coaches in all of college football, I might argue, because at Iowa State's not known as a passing factory, that they air raid offense. No, that was a run-first physical type of team, which makes sense why Matt Campbell fits in so well at Penn State. He was the passing game coordinator for Iowa State, but it's his ability to develop prospects that are underrated. You know, really, they have top-tier potential, but they haven't been able to hit it yet. You want to talk about somebody that does more with less. It's Noah Pauly. And if you can bring him over after, again, Marcus Hagen's good recruiter. We did see the wide receivers actually step up and make some progress towards the end of the season. But if we're making a direct comparison, I don't think Marcus Hagens is in the same ballpark of a caliber of coach that Noah Pauly is. Pauly sent not one, not two, not three, but 4 wide receiver prospects into last year's NFL draft that were selected in rounds 2 through 4. Penn State. When was the last time Penn State did something like that? All in the same draft. You might recognize some of these names. I'll give you a couple of them, especially because of the seasons that they've been having. And go figure, they both play for the same team. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. I think the football junkies will know a little bit better because these guys have had underrated rookie seasons for the Houston Texans. But day 2 and day 3 NFL draft picks. I know that Penn State had its success in the past. Chris Godwin goes in round 3, or KJ Hamler was drafted fairly high. Of course, Jahan Dotson was selected in round 1, but it was one receiver here, one receiver there. It was never this influx of talent all into one draft cycle. Noah Pauly put 4 prospects into the same NFL draft that were selected in rounds 2 through 4. The proof is right there. And again, at a place like Iowa State, it's not to dismiss Iowa State. It's not to be disrespectful to them, but it's also to understand that Iowa State is not this powerhouse in college football, that they truly have to move a bunch of puzzle pieces around to find success. So Penn State fans should be very excited, very eager for what's to come for the future of Penn State football over these immediately in year 1, over the next 2 to 3 years, and then 5+. Because I think, going back to what I said in the beginning, Matt Campbell is here for the long run. That's where I'm going to wrap up this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section. A friendly reminder, as always, I appreciate the support on this channel. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around all your favorite Penn State sports teams.